Hello, hello, and welcome to a Tuesday show of Maximum Growth Live. I am one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, a social media marketing lawyer who happens to own not only FirmFlex, which is our social media agency, but also a law firm here in Connecticut that does civil rights and criminal defense. And with me, as always, down there, and I would say DC, Maryland, Virginia, to Seth Price, who's the founder of Price Benowitz, or co-founder of Price Benowitz, along with a great criminal defense attorney. And in addition to that, he happens to be the founder of Blue Star Digital. And I'm looking behind you, Seth, and it looks a little different than your Bethesda and backdrop. You seem to be outside in a t-shirt, and I have a feeling you're not in Maryland anymore. So where has Price Benowitz opened up their news? Are you in Cuba? Are you in Argentina? Are you in South Sudan? Where are you to be able to handle the temperatures outside in just a t-shirt?
You know, we realized the kids were on Zoom for the foreseeable future, and indoor sports didn't seem like an ideal thing. So we pulled sort of a Henry Hill. We picked up the family in the middle of the night, jumped in the minivan, and relocated south for a little bit so that we could Zoom and work from some warmth, re-energize. So we're down in South Florida.
You know, I like that. You know, it's interesting. You know, as we have moved all to the cloud, it's something that is more of an option for many families now, that you could actually do something where, and I wonder if coming out of this, if school districts or private schools will make that a selling feature for families. I mean.
Maybe for like a January month, because that was one of the things I remember when the family was lucky enough to be in Europe over the summers. The idea that like you could go and tour all day, around 3 p.m. you come back, the kids can rest up, and you can start your day. And the dinners there are so late, you can get a 6-hour day in before dinner. And to me, that was one of those things lifestyle wise I'd love to see. That look, we're missing in school classes. It's the reason we're here is the distractions and the pull of video games when there's, when it's cold outside was just too great. But I'm hoping it re-energizes me. I have a whole Rolodex down in South Florida. Can't wait to catch up with a lot of good friends and business contacts down here.
Yeah, it's crazy. As you know, I've fallen into the trap of Peloton. And this weekend, I drove 7 miles and biked 15.5. So I was on that Peloton bike that goes nowhere for a longer distance than I actually drove my car this weekend.
The one casualty was which did not fit into the minivan. So we will have to actually bike on the roads and get exercise outside as opposed to on the Peloton.
I'm a little jealous of that. I'm definitely a little jealous of that. But, thinking about being able to go to the cloud, it's interesting. I've been sharing my saga of bringing on as a virtual employee or an overseas employee to be able to help us with our intake. The problem for us is that as cases are coming in, the need to convert immediately, the sales cycle has gotten very long because we're seeing court dates set out till March or April here in Connecticut. And so one of the things is we have a tremendous number of intakes to follow up with and just stay top of mind with. And we wanted to basically make that somebody's job, but because the people aren't converting, we haven't been able to, spend the kind of money that we normally take for intake. So we look to find a virtual assistant or an overseas worker to fill that role. We think we found somebody who went to start today, logged into our database, and everything was great, and then said, okay, so I can't use the phone software because it's not Mac compliant. And so we're trying to devise a solution. The person is trained and ready to go, but we don't have access to our cloud-based phone system on Macs because we use an Allworks based system. I think that Allworks is what you use in your office.
We do.
And it's great if you're PC based, but it's not great if you're Mac based, like our VA is.
But money solves every problem.
Right.
Again, I don't want whether Amazon delivers to him, but $600 later, there's a new laptop.
Oh, he's in Mexico City. He's in Mexico City. So Amazon delivers to him. I mean, he's got a master's in engineering. He's going to solve this problem. But it's just, it's one more wrinkle that wouldn't be a wrinkle if somebody was sitting in the office next to me.
The people I have seen most successful so far with the VAs and our individual tasks, what you're doing is pretty bold, and I'm looking at it. But to me, it's going to be several steps before you get to, hey, I'm replacing a U.S. employee. What inspired me was some of the stuff like immigration, where you're focused so much on somebody who's bilingual. That advantage of having somebody for overseas meant you had a bigger catchment area to juice from. One of the most frustrating things is when I need somebody bilingual and I get a limited number of people, some of whom are awesome, but some of whom I have to take because they're bilingual plus maybe enough. Would they have gotten the job if they were not bilingual? I love the idea of opening it to the world, but the way I've sort of pursued it is I'm looking at it as not, and again, margins are tight right now with Connecticut criminal, I get it, but I'm sort of looking at it like adding people an experiment, meaning this is not going to be a profit center. If they work out, great, but I want to add excess capacity to see what works and what doesn't. I'm not bold enough to think that I can figure out how to get somebody trained and sophisticated enough internationally to actually be able to replace what we have with our training program. That said, it sort of dovetails into our next thing, which is staffing of employees and the headaches involved with those. One of the topics that I would think, in theory, I would hope you would have is stability from international employees, where the amount you're paying is really sticky. The flip side may be that the reference doesn't mean as much. So one of the things that we all, you and I and everybody else on this call, sort of count on for employees is some sort of notice period. The idea, that, with an international employee, if they aren't part of your ecosystem, there may be less of a notice. We just had a key employee give notice, and it was somebody it's a busy time of year. We were hoping to have them through the end of the year, but there was a training program, it was a career. They wanted to do something else with their lives, not what we were offering. And 2 weeks is a brutal thing. And I wanted to sort of throw this out to you. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this over the years, which is, as entrepreneurs, if we staff enough so that any person's departure isn't particularly painful, you're probably staffing beyond the necessity to get through the day. At the same time, when you staff appropriately, and put that in air quotes because I don't necessarily, but at the baseline, to have everybody in place with no excess capacity, when somebody decides to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to do something in life, you have a moment in time where you may be without that, where you may start putting on the hat to go answer a phone or do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do at this point in your career. How do you balance not spending excess money, profitability, but at the same time having enough excess capacity to be sustainable, where no one person's exit really can affect you that much?
It's funny. We tend to be thinking about the same things at the same times. And this is a conversation I had with one of my intake team leader, who's a lawyer who runs our intake team. And I said, we're interested in adding somebody, in that quote unquote happiness role that you've heard about. And we actually found that there's some discrete tasks that in Connecticut we have these diversion programs, and someone has to sort of bird dog those files, make sure the paperwork gets where they have to get. So they're constantly talking to the clients on the tail end of good representation. And so we're thinking that'd be a great person to fill that role. But maybe if we fill that role, they should be cross-trained in intake in case we lose somebody on our intake team. And that's something that I said, wouldn't it be great? If that person who's bird dogging those files over a 6-month period could get trained in a little bit of intake. And so, we just lost somebody on intake. We got somebody who can fill right in. And you can do that with a number of different positions. And we're thinking that might be a way to go. But it gets to the point where it's like, do you want to spend that money? Now, we found a way that we can justify the expense on, the happiness role, who's going to help us get good reviews, because quite frankly, I've said to my partners, I would rather take $35,000 a year off of my advertising budget and spend it on somebody whose job it is to get us reviews. Because you could, if you're spending that extra $35,000 or $40,000 on leads, but those leads are clicking through and they're seeing that you only have 50 reviews and your competitor has 300, they're going to click through on the competitor. So I'd rather have somebody focusing on the reviews as the new currency. And so that's how we're sort of rationalizing it. Of course, it's a rationalization, but
it's just money. Look, I don't think it's a rationalization at all. It's a conversation. Again, we live parallel lives. We haven't talked about these things off air, but I couldn't agree more that is now, we talk about 4 pillars of SEO. The GMB reviews, which used to be like, hey, don't worry about the number. Size matters. Yeah. It's crazy. So that the fact
and
that
size matters on your reviews really tremendously to LSA, because on local you're showing up there and they're not clicking through to your website. I mean, now they're getting to a page that Google presents them of all the stuff that you do and the number of your reviews. And so really we need to be focusing on just generating volume of reviews. I got an idea for you, and let's talk about gaming that system. Because
before we jump into LSAs, let's just finish this thought though, which is, to me, and I see this, I don't know if you've ever been a waiter. I was a waiter back in the day. And when you could make real money as a waiter, I was in America. It was sort of like in the heyday of the big 80s, had like all the celebrities coming in.
In the city?
It was a lot of fun.
Were you at America in the city?
In the city. America.
I got a great story about that place.
I had a table. It was like Jeff Goldblum, John Amos, Michelle Pfeiffer, and some other A-lister were doing Shakespeare in the Park. I mean, it was a great, great time. But the thing that I remember about it was Arc Restaurants that ran it was brilliant in that they would have many more waiters than they needed. And that way, if anybody gave them lip, if anybody was sort of causing problems, if anybody was starting to sort of get the bad mojo, they'd be like, done, off the shift. Didn't hurt them. They never needed somebody for that next shift. They had more people than they needed. And I feel like as I've grown my intake, and I've also seen this in the paralegal space, you see this in pre-lit paralegals, is that I feel like where I am today, infinitely better than I was several years ago, but that the ability for somebody to sort of hold you over the fire is not a great feeling as a business owner. And we probably all have too many of those people in employment. And not that you don't want to be good to people, and not that you shouldn't have people that really you count on, but the idea that we are sort of left with lack of excess capacity, so that when we have people go off their meds, which happens more often than I'd like to acknowledge, where weird stuff happens, calling out sick at the last moment without justification, taking off in the middle of COVID for an international trip, weird things that literally have taken place in recent weeks for me. The fact is, I don't have that excess bandwidth generally. And the only way to do that is to staff additionally, which cuts down on profit margin. But is that one of those things, those truisms that as you grow, while the margin may drop minutely, it keeps consistency, which is what's going to allow your business to build and grow over time.
Yeah, in some respects, think about it's tough because everyone's at different levels of compensation. But for me, spending another $20,000 or $25,000 of what would be profit and having that extra body sort of available to take volume off of my existing people who are great people who might be feeling overworked and starting to burn out. That has value to me.
Absolutely.
To keep the stress level of somebody has left off of me is worth it. And so it's just a judgment call that you have to make. And quite frankly,
and you obviously can't do it for every position, but the systems you've created have made it lethal if somebody were to leave. But it's always that gray area. It may not be enough that you're going to go out because let's say you get busy. Thankfully, we both had growing firms. There are moments when you need to hire an additional person. We talk about when you need to hire an additional person. Now you have somebody breaking. What do you do? And that to me is the worst place because look, we know the truism, hire slow, fire fast, but we've all been in positions where people have stayed beyond their expiration date. And I'd say the number one time I'm guilty of that is when I have need for additional capacity and then somebody is breaking and you're like, your head starts to explode. Now I need 2 slots filled. And that's a heck of a lot harder to find going with the higher slow methodology than it is if you just need that one. And so I feel like it's when you're in growth mode, very often you see that mistake of keeping people on too long, like guilty as charged.
Yeah, and it's something we talk about. We've talked about in the past. You look at some of the more successful sports franchises. We talk a lot about sports as running our firm, and bringing in your A players for a season or two, and then your younger players are able to step up into those roles. A lot of successful sports teams do have that solid utility player who can step into a lot of different roles, but they don't start. Right? And they're never going to be a starter, but you got to keep them on your bench and pay them a salary to be able to be there. And they're functional in a lot of roles.
You're Fred Stanley.
Exactly. That's really what it comes down to. But I didn't know that you worked at America. I got some great stories. I actually wound up at a fundraiser at America back. John McEnroe was serving me drinks for the Lugano Foundation. I ate dinner sitting at a table next to Queen Latifah there, and we shared food. If anybody knows, I'm a big fan of 90s rap, so that was a big thing for me. So I love that restaurant. I was bummed when it closed down, but I could see the menu was enormous. I can imagine what it was like working in that kitchen. That was great. But let me ask you a question, because this is something that I did 12 tonight. I have something planned, and it is I am turning off all of my pay-per-click for the month of December. And I am taking all of that money and driving it right into the Google local stuff and seeing how that converts. Because, quite frankly, I want to see if, as an A/B test, I'm going to be able to do more with the LSA leads than I am with the pay-per-click leads. I mean, I think I still have good SEO to some extent. I know it's not as good as if you guys were managing it. But I've got good placement in the SERPs. SERP is search engine results page for anybody who doesn't know the lingo that we talk about. So if I've got good placement in the SERPs and I'm still surviving on that end, maybe turning off pay-per-click doesn't really impact me. I can repurpose that money into LSA. I may be able to convert more in the short term. I got to find the right balance.
I applaud you. You're always a step ahead of the curve. You were the first guy to turn off Avo to see whether that made a big difference. It took me another year and a half, I think, to follow suit. I would say right now, I think it's a genius idea. Like LSA is where Google's putting its resources. I think it is underpriced. If you're playing Moneyball, they are going to charge more for those same calls in the future. It's not a free lunch. We've seen in some practice areas a lot.
Yeah, that's the applause. That's the applause button for that. It's underpriced. If you're not in LSA now, you better get it. You better get there.
But I mean, but it is. And I had a phone call with a client the other day about this. It's pay-per-click. It's not a free lunch. Certain areas I've seen are not converting. Certain areas like PI seem to have converted better, but it is hit or miss on a bunch of things. And that, again, there's a protocol to challenge the leads that don't work, the ones that are not real leads, and so that you can get the price down. That price is going to go up. So right now, yes, absolutely. My gut is there will be a moment down the line where LSAs, they're going to keep pushing it, and there'll be a point where you're going to be like, oh man, those clicks weren't so bad after all. We're not there yet, but I think it's very interesting. What we have seen, and anecdotally, it is not something I would ready for a white paper on, but what I'm seeing is the cannibalization of pay-per-click is what or the traditional AdWords or Google Ads, they call them, is what we're seeing. We have not seen a dramatic decrease in the organic traffic. The maps and the organic seem to be, despite being pushed down further, still, relatively left alone. I'm sure that the jury is still out, and there'll still be. I'm guessing that there will be some incremental decrease on that traffic. But that said, what we are seeing is a decimation of the amount of traffic available through pay-per-click. And so, yes, if you have a pay-per-click button, absolutely pushing a majority to LSA right now. And if you don't have a pay-per-click budget, at least seeing whether or not you can get some short-term bang for the buck if the time to try it. And frankly, I think it's already not it's not gone, but it's not the same way it was the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, it's interesting. I just called it up while you were talking because I wasn't sure how it looks like. But I think one of the issues with the cannibalization of pay-per-click is how they present it. You've got the 3 people on the top with their number of reviews, and in the upper right-hand corner it says sponsored, right? But it doesn't say sponsored by who. Then you go to the pay-per-click, the very first thing you see is ad. And there is a natural inclination to people when they see something that says, oh, this is a paid ad, that they're going to be suspicious of it. So sponsored isn't necessarily ad. And so in that respect, I think that, Google's using a little consumer psychology there to get people to focus on the people at the top of the page because they want that product to win. But here's another big but, right? Pay-per-click is a reverse auction, and there could be thousands of people in that space, whereas local service is you're seeing 3 people. There aren't that many people. You wonder if local service actually does a disservice to their trust violation, saying that they've cornered the market. It seems like it's worse for them.
More so. I couldn't agree more. And look, they couldn't make enough money by just making the ad fainter and fainter. If we did this as websites where we hid stuff, and they have done everything they can to reduce the clarity to the distinction that it is an ad. They're like, right. Okay, we've maxed out that. Okay, let's go to this. We'll get rid of the word ad and put sponsored. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. But that said, my gut is we are seeing an artificially low price point because they want people into the market. At some point, the Google will be up and they're like, okay, it's time for us to monetize it. But like everything else, they want to, and we saw this again, Avo, to get us as early adapters, you could buy a placement, which had pretty good ROI back in the day. When they went to the block system, all of that disappeared as they tried to get the money for their eventual sale.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I went back and forth with these conversations with my partners about should we just pause pay-per-click and go all into LSA. And finally, I just said, you know what? For us, business is still down. It's down I mean, it's down 30% from where it should be.
Understood.
Still, at one point we were down 70. Now it's down 30. If I'm taking a shot, I'm gonna take the shot now.
Jay, I'm really excited for you. I think this experiment is brilliant because in the criminal space, you need people with funds. And I don't see, if you have reviews in the LSAs and your reviews in the organic below, that I think that this is smart money. And I think you may be ahead of the curve once again, as far as shifting resources around, particularly in the fee-for-service space.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, and the reality is that my whole career has been, let's try something that other people aren't doing. And I've been successful probably more times than I've failed. I have failed a tremendous amount of times. But if you don't take chances, you're never gonna really shoot the moon,
No, right. But let me just caution a couple things. LSAs aren't shown in every search. And
yeah, they're not. It's interesting. I'm not getting any ticket business from there. I'm not getting any expungement business. Both categories I'm approved for, and we're not getting. We're not even showing for those things because I don't think they're active yet.
You need 3 competitors in order for it to show. So the question there is, are you going to leave those on with pay-per-click, given that there's no LSA yet? That it will be interesting to see what you do. Because that's one of those ones. If you're really doing the A/B tests, it's not a true A/B test if in fact LSAs aren't running in a number of your markets.
So I what I kept on was my through the AdWords platform. I have some video ads running, unskippable pre-roll YouTube branding ads. And since there's really no LSA of those, I kept those things running. Those are small dollar amounts, high number of views that I'm trying to get. But that's what I left on. But I wanna wrap up this first part of the show and talk one last thing about recruiting and spending money on recruiting, because I think it's something that we need to think about. As we have gone through there, and I've gone back and forth. I was talking to one of my partners today about the need to bring on another lawyer. And the question was, do we do it in-house, post an ad, see who comes in? Do we have a recruiter do it, knowing that the recruiter is going to cost some money? I know you've been in this situation before. What are your thoughts?
Look, apropos once again, look, I have an in-house person that does work for me. She places the Indeed ads. We built the firm on Craigslist. You probably heard me say this before. We don't get our people from Craigslist currently. It sucks because we literally built an 85-person firm using Craigslist. Indeed, very expensive. I think an antitrust suit is coming because they allow anybody to click. That's the most frustrating part. So for you, on this, you either are Connecticut barred with criminal defense experience or you're not. So to me, this shouldn't need a recruiter, at least not anytime soon, right? You have your own network. You put an ad out. If you do criminal defense, there aren't that many jobs for somebody with experience doing criminal defense, right? The issue comes for me is when there's something that's more sort of that is more general, and that there's either the paralegals in the injury space are a commodity because as you know, more and more people got into PI, there are opportunities to make money doing different things. Now with work from home on this job, it's made it easier. But when you want somebody really good, it is hard to bring those people in. And so to me, I always bifurcate between, hey, if it's so definable, you can get to much of the market yourself. And if you try for like 4 months, you don't get your right person, fine. But for you, market knows you put a sign saying, hey, we got an opening. You're going to get word of mouth, social. It's going to spread once you do it. Frankly, that's how we built our practice and how we got our best criminal defense lawyers. The issue becomes when there's something that is more precious, and we have a few searches out there. I have not been able to land Virginia family law lawyer that we love. We've kept that position open without taking the cases, literally just giving away the case to other lawyers for quite a while because I can't find somebody I love. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm losing opportunity, we have a great online presence for it. We get calls for it. And I'd rather just making somebody happy with a referral, I'd love to have somebody. I know I could make that into probably a high 6, if not a 7-figure practice over a couple of years. But what do you do when you've tried everything? And that's the question is when is it okay to be paying 20% plus or minus to an outside party who frankly is doing what you're able to do yourself most of the time. And I always feel like, hey, we've been in this, we've talked about it. Like, hey, are you going to do this yourself? Because it's a lot of money, for an $80,000 salary, that's $16,000 plus or minus. It could be $16,000, $20,000. Person stays for a year. That's a heck of a lot of money. That said, you have something where having an extra iron in the fire. And I'm jaded because when we needed an ops person, we went to it. And what I found was every single person the recruiters brought us, we also got ourselves through Indeed. So it was just one of those we're not like big law where nobody wants to raise their hand and you have to get this person with the right supremeships and cold call them and get it. That whole ethos doesn't exist in our world. If you do criminal defense and you want to work for Jay and you put an ad out, those people generally will raise their hand. And if they don't, you're one person away from them sending a test balloon over. So it's one of those areas I don't constantly, it's emotional, right? You don't have who you want. You want to sort of bring the recruiters in and the recruiters bring you the same stuff you're getting yourself. That's the frustration.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it also comes down to a decision any has to make about, is this something that you can handle with your current bandwidth? Is this another thing that you can put on your plate? I've systematized, whatever you want, whatever word you want to use, the hiring to some extent, because we have our, what tests they have to take. We have what we will write in our ads, where we will place them. I mean, if I turn to my VA or my administrative assistant and say, hey, get this ad up, we can have it up, but by 3 p.m. today. And start getting clicks. But the question is it going to get you anything better? Or do you use that recruiter? Is it a good recruiter who's actually going through and saying, this is not the right person for the job, even though they may look on paper? Or is the recruiter literally just sending you volume? And if they're sending you volume, what help are they doing?
I would argue that anybody who's relying on a contingency recruiter, which is most of the recruiters we're going to deal with, not a retained one. That anybody deal with a contingency recruiter who's telling you when you don't want to hire somebody, that's like, going into a fashion store and having the salesperson tell you don't look good in something. That's just not happening.
Right.
So the reason that you use the recruiter, in my opinion, is to find people not on the market. If they have people in their database they can reach out to that you can't, great. That's very, very valuable. Because look, there is a truism. You want somebody who's not in the market, right? So when you place an ad, you're only getting people who are looking. And that there's a whole school of thought that you never want to place an ad, that you only want people that are already at an existing place and happy. And somehow the thought of working for Jay is so great. And that's why we use very high incentives for our people. We go up to, $500 in some months, as much as $1,000. We pay it out quarterly or in two payments. But we want people internally. Our best hires come from people who are friends and family who want to work with us. We love that. But there are times specific that you can't get that. The more general the position, the easier it is. And look, as you become more established, but one thing that I've seen, and I just wondered to get your opinion on it, we place a lot of ads. Now, originally, one of the things I loved about it was on Craigslist and other places, you'd have all that link trust juice coming back to your site from all over the web. But put that aside for a second. I do it because I always want to be recruiting. But there are people that spend their lives on recruiting sites, including current employees. That's one of the things that blows my mind. When we place ads, it is not uncommon for our internal employees to comment, not to comment on there, but there are people that's their side hobby. It's their living vicarious. Like you and I might look at like Club Med websites to determine where we want to go next. There are other people that literally are looking at job boards constantly, and then they're not going anywhere. These people have been with me for years. Right. But the point is, do you think that there is a negative? Somebody raised their hand and said, hey, you have so many ads out for different things. I also don't believe in one ad, and that people may be looking for different things for the same position. For me, they call it different things. They think of it different things. Do you think you can get to the point where you are saturated enough, where you have so many ads that people think it's high turnover, not because you're creative in how you're trying to recruit?
Well, I think that's certainly something that could be an issue, especially if they're going from your ad to maybe like Glassdoor and reading reviews about your firm, where they're only going to see, for the most part, negative reviews of people who may have had problems and have been forced out or chose to leave. Those are the people that tend to go on sites like Glassdoor and leave reviews. So then you're sort of in a real sticky situation. But if somebody can do some research about you and find out the size and breadth of your operation, I would be surprised if you having many things out there dissuade somebody from applying.
And that's my feeling. You can't, unless you're out, unless they find out about you. And that's also a good thing to conclude on. Just making sure that you're always cognizant of not just Glassdoor, but Indeed. It's funny. I put so much focus on making sure that Glassdoor was in good shape, that totally forgot that Indeed was even out there. And it's to me, given that Indeed is so powerful, and probably could be an entire segment on their show, is best practices of using Indeed. Maybe we could bring some experts on, because it is so important to get value because the clicks are so expensive.
Bless you. See, folks, this is what happens when someone goes to Florida and now gets exposed to his allergies again. Instead of me sitting, in my little studio here, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not sneezing because I'm exposed to flowers and pollen like you are, Seth. And I got to tell you, man, I don't feel for you, but bless you there, and I hope that you do well.
You may want to cut that out so the audience doesn't have to see me wiping my.
No. This is
all good fun as well. This is the raw deal.
This is live, baby. This is how we are. I'm not going to go back in. Maybe for a replay, I'll take it out. But this is as live as it comes. That's just the way it is. Okay, so last but not least, I want to talk quite quickly about the death of somebody who was monumental in the entrepreneur community, and that's Tony Hsieh from Zappos. Hsieh. I'm sorry, I'm butchering his last name. But he died this weekend after a house fire in Connecticut. It's certainly under under investigation now, and we'll see what that has turned into. He wrote an amazing book called Delivering Happiness, and he was an interesting story in that he went to Harvard. He was selling pizza slices out of his room, built a .com company, and sold that. Then took all that money and developed it into Zappos, which then was acquired by Amazon. But he stayed in a management role there, and really sort of built a culture that was really unbeatable. I can remember the story of a woman calling to return shoes that her husband had bought, but she didn't have a packing slip, and didn't know how to get them back to the company. But her husband had died. That's why they didn't need the food. They didn't need the shoes. And so Zappos sent her flowers as part of just the customer service person. And that was just something that the woman was taken aback by, that a company who was actually going to lose money on a transaction would go out of their way to do. And his book, Delivering Happiness, is going to be covered by Ryan. And I don't want to get into all of his stuff, but we're gonna take a break now, and then Ryan's gonna come back and talk a little bit about the book Delivering Happiness, because I think it's a good message for a lot of people in our service-related business. I mean, he was selling a commodity through a service-based business, a customer service-based business that happened to sell shoes and other retail goods. But I think it's a good book that Ryan is reviewing this week. It's certainly timely. And so why don't we take a quick break? We'll hear from our sponsors. When we come back, Ryan will do his book review, and then we'll come back and we'll be able to wrap up the show. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. We'll be right back, folks, with some more Maximum Live.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
Hi, it's Ryan McKean, and I'm here with this week's episode of Just Book It, and I'm going to be discussing Tony Hsieh's Delivering Happiness. Tony Hsieh was the founder of Zappos and an amazing entrepreneur by any measure. Tony died over the weekend here in Connecticut, tragically, in a house fire. Now, over the years, I had read a lot about Zappos, a lot of articles about Tony, about their principles, but I had never read his book, Delivering Happiness. So on Thanksgiving break, I figured it would be a good book to pick up and discuss with you all. And it really was. I mean, the book, like a lot of these books, it tells the story of the CEO, founder, Tony, and weaves in some real good lessons about business. And specifically, I want to talk about two of those lessons. And the first lesson is about delivering happiness, and about how if we are, as business owners, are able to deliver happiness to our customers, that is the ultimate advantage, because everything else can be copied. All of your systems, all of your marketing, can be copied, but really the things that cannot be copied are your customer experience and your team. So those are the two critical points. And delivering happiness to your clients should be part of the focus of any firm. And we as lawyers have great opportunity. And I know, you may be saying, well, look, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and how can I deliver happiness to my clients? Well, I mean, Zappos sells online shoes. So if they can do it, you can, because I think what it does is it involves a process and not an outcome. So the process is of treating people like individuals, listening, not rushing to get them off the phone, sending them birthday cards, surprising them. I mean, we have a client who has a pet iguana who just came aboard, and our client happiness director just sent that pet iguana a holiday costume from Amazon to the client. Again, just to show that we listen and we care. So throughout the course of representation, we all have these opportunities, and we should be taking them, because the thing that really drives profit and drives growth isn't necessarily just investing in marketing. It is investing in experience. And one of the examples that Tony gives in his book is that, they were out one night. It was very late. They were in a place that they weren't normally in. And this is sort of before the age of all cell phones. And they wanted a pizza. So what they did is they called Zappos at 1 a.m. They spoke to a customer service rep and wanted to find a place where pizza could be delivered to them, or would deliver pizza to them. And the Zappos rep didn't hang up the phone. The Zappos rep listened, found places to deliver pizza, and made the recommendation based upon online reviews. And again, how many people call our law firms and we're not the fit for them? How are we servicing them? How are we treating them? Are we able to turn them into fans by providing that level of experience that's simply not replicable by other firms? They talk about how the phone is actually your best marketing tool, even in this age of digital, of answering the phone, of reaching out and calling people, of listening to people, of not rushing to get off the phone with people. So using that phone to provide customer experience is a way in which you can win, drive revenue, and drive profits. And Tony also talks about displaying the same level of care and delivering happiness to your employees, because happy employees are employees that will produce. They will be able to provide a fantastic customer service, client service experience to your customers, and will help you thrive. So really, I want the sign that's on my desktop at work is always, focus on product and focus on team. And that's really the point of Tony's book, which is focus on what you're delivering. Focus on those opportunities to really, really impress your clients, to really make them happy. Because at the end of the day, happiness is at a premium. And a lot of businesses and a lot of firms aren't going to invest in it. So absolutely read this book, honor the legacy of Tony, and think about ways that you can make your clients, your employees, and yourself happier. And in the long run, you're going to drive your profits and grow your firm in a way that's sustainable and organic. Thank you.
All right, just a phenomenal book review by Ryan. Some great stuff there that you can talk about culture, just how to focus your firm, Seth. We've had a great show. We started strong. We've been going strong. And I got to tell you, the next couple of weeks, we've got some phenomenal guests. Who do we got coming up this Thursday?
We do. This Thursday, we got Jerry Parker, who is sort of one of the original online marketers. He's done it online. He's done TV. He is just one of, I entered the space, who was just so intense, and just watching how he operated was just awesome. He's the one who spun off Smart Advocate out of his own law firm. Just a force to be reckoned with, and honored to have him join us this Thursday.
Yeah, I love it. Folks, if you want to catch any of our interviews, you can always catch us on the Maximum Lawyer podcast. We are syndicated through them, through Maximum Lawyer Media. We also have our own standalone podcast. And of course, you can always watch any of these shows in repeat live on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Maximum Growth Live. And then, Seth, we have a December to remember, not only with Jerry Parker, who's coming up, but after that, we've got to get you broke out the Rolodex, you made the calls, you made the connections, and I got to tell you, in just prepping for this interview, I've had to read a book again for like the 10th time. It was really easy to do, but this get is going to just blow people's mind. What do you think?
I can't wait. So we'll tease it for the week, but we are super excited that this show has gotten traction where people are contacting us and wanting to join in. So this is going to be a fun one.
This is going to be a fun one, folks. So stay tuned. Make sure you turn into us this Thursday as we tease out, and we'll let you know who's going to be on the show next Thursday. A lot of great stuff for you. But for now, I'm Jay Rue with Seth Price, and we are Maximum Growth Live. Bye for now. Have a great day. We'll see you on Thursday. Bye, everybody.